All right, perfect. Awesome. First of all, thank you so much for having me, and much appreciated to be part of the inaugural First Gen Summit here at Penn State. So I'm super excited, and I'm definitely caffeinated at this moment. Next slide, please. So the title of this presentation that I had is Thriving in Uncertainty. And the reason I came up with that is I think that's something that first gen students and graduates do every single day in our lives. We always have to thrive through uncertainty and through things that we may not know, but that's what makes us so special as a community. As Denise mentioned, I currently am a strategy and operations analyst at Twitter. My career has taken many different paths, but everything essentially started from my homeland. I was born in Santiago, Dominican Republic. My dad was from Puerto Rico, so I'm both Puerto Rican and Dominican. And I attended Penn State from 2010 to 2014, majored in IST, minored in SRA. And this past March, I was honored and blessed to be one of the recipients of the 2022 Penn State Alumni Achievement Awards, recognizing young alumni. And my first story essentially is I'm the first at everything in my family. So first to graduate college, first to be raised in the US, first to work in tech and consulting, first to be recognized by university. And I always tell everyone, although I'm the first of many, I definitely won't be the last. Awesome. So I want to spend some time here just talking about how I got to this point and my journey overall. And it begins first in 2009. So I began my freshman year in 2010, but in 2009, it was a pivotal year as a first gen student due to the fact that it was my senior year of high school. And how I got exposed to Penn State was first attending a nanotechnology camp at University Park, which exposed me to the campus, the life, got me really excited about Penn State. So I started researching more about college and universities and what I wanted to do in my career. And then it came time for the hard part. And that was signing up and applying for FAFSA. My parents did not know what that was. I had no idea how to even apply or go around it. But let's just say I did it somehow. And here I am today, many years later. In 2010, I was fortunate in my senior year to receive acceptance from 5+ schools, financial aid, including scholarships and loans to be able to afford the university. But for me, the most important thing as a first gen student back then was I wanted to be close to home. And for me, that was Philadelphia. So the closest campus and what got me excited was Penn State Abington when I first started. So I began my freshman year there and luckily decided to choose a career in IST, which was the best choice I could have made looking back right now because I absolutely love the tech industry. 2012 for me was probably one of the most important times in my lives. So 2 years after I spent at Abington, I had to make a very, very tough decision. And that was, did I want to remain at Abington or did I want to go to University Park? At that time, the way that I was thinking was I wanted to be part of just experiencing the bigger campus, right? All the thousands of students. I just wanted to have that experience in my life, especially after 2 years spending at home. And I decided to do that, which was extremely hard choice for me to make, leaving behind my mom and my younger brother at the time. But I'm happy I did because I got to expose myself to a lot of new things. I was able to get an internship that summer at Cushman & Wakefield in New York City, a real estate company. And then I was blessed in the fall of 2012 to be able to get an internship offer for the summer of 2013 with Deloitte Consulting. And I put a little note here as well, because for me, and this happens often with first gen students, I actually did not take advantage of the Career Center as much as I should have. A lot of this was on my own, a lot of research, a lot of just asking friends, applying. And looking back now, I wish I would have done a little bit more of that. It ended up working out, but it was something that I wasn't aware at the time when I was a student and did not take as much advantage. And then over to 2014. 2014 is when I graduated. Shout out to class of 2014. I was fortunate to graduate with a pretty decent GPA from the College of IST. I had a full-time job offer with Deloitte Consulting in my senior year. which was amazing. And then I started my career. I spent 3 years working in the state of Delaware for the government there as one of my clients and supporting fraud and benefit recovery applications. And that pretty much took me all the way over to the rest of my career so far. 2019, I started to get more involved with the Penn State community. I think after a few years, I told myself, I want to be able to help others. And I started signing up to do things such as being the diversity and inclusion lead for Penn State at the time with Deloitte Recruiting, coming back to campus, sharing my experiences with other students, especially first-gen students, introducing people to a new career that I honestly did not know much about when I was in school, like the beauty of consulting and traveling and working with many different clients. So that was a big year for me. And then 2021 to 2022, where I am today. After 5+ years of consulting, I decided that I wanted to head over to Silicon Valley and took a job with Twitter. So that's where I am at the moment. And through there, I also wanted to give back. So participated in celebrating Hispanic Heritage Month event with Penn State IST, and then brought me over to where I am today with receiving recently the 2022 Penn State Alumni Award. So I also want to spend some time here the most because while I shared with you all a lot of success, there's also a lot of challenges that came with it. Pictured here on the right is my father and my mother. So what I did not mention in the timeline before is that in 2011, I unexpectedly lost my father, who was a landscaper his entire life, essentially from Puerto Rico, and was the person who provided essentially the money for our entire family. My mom was a stay-at-home mom as well, and she unexpectedly passed away in 2017. So in the past 10 years of my life personally, I've lost both of my parents, one while I was in college and one after leaving school, which is hard. It's a hard thing in life, but these are just challenges, that we all go through. And it's part of my personal journey and story. And with that, right, like I have listed here, not to go into too much detail, these are challenges that I have faced. And I think that us first gen, whether you're alumni, faculty, or current student, face every single day. And that is the lack of awareness of financial resources available, whether that's scholarships or loans or the roles of advisors and how critical they can be to your career. I definitely think that more emphasis on that would be amazing for everyone. And feeling pressure. We all feel a ton of pressure. It's like the weight of the world is on our shoulders, especially with your first gen. There was no roadmap. It's up to you essentially to carve your own story and narrative and to start making your own network. So that is an immense pressure that comes from the moment you enter school to the moment you leave, and even many, many years after the fact. Imposter syndrome. I personally don't like the term imposter syndrome just because I don't think anyone is truly an imposter, but it does exist, the feelings of feeling like a fraud or doubting yourself. So just something to be aware of. And then societal. So coming from an underrepresented background, especially at the university level, Latinx or Black or American Indian, there are already so many challenges that come with that, as well as language barriers. So these are all common challenges that we face. So how can we help students thrive? So as I mentioned before, in a few of the challenges that I face, and I believe that we face overall as a community, now let's look a little bit into what can we do to thrive, right? Thrive in that uncertainty. This picture, which I truly love, is a picture of a bunch of my friends all graduating together and supporting one another in the year 2014. Why this is so unique is because many of the people you see here, Penn State alumni now, are lawyers. They are professionals in the tech industry, program managers, and so much more. And also many of them are first gen from all over the country who came to Penn State to share the same common experience and build a community. And I met most of my friends in school through joining clubs and organizations. And I think that's the key here, that even so many years after the fact, this does become my professional network, and we were able to help each other out in that time. So for me, a couple of the things I think that we can do is first looking into mentorship. So I believe that in the process of a first-gen student coming to Penn State, that there should be some pairing of a first-gen student with a first-gen alumni. In whatever capacity that is, it's still to be thought out. But I think that apart from that, what is great is to be able to share those experiences with one another as an alumni, as faculty, as staff, have more of a team together to be able to support a student throughout their career, essentially, and providing more guidance. So professional development, connecting that to the real world experiences, making people feel like, okay, you're here in school today, but it's worth it, right? Like you're going to end up being successful. You're going to end up going to your career. Everything that you're learning, everything that you're experiencing is for an outcome. More financial workshops, that's a given. I think that's always a stress for everyone and people's families. So as much resources that are available, job opportunities will be key. Well-being, absolutely love this one, especially in today's world, so much going on, mental health, therapy, and community involvement. So being able to join clubs and organizations, taking leadership roles right from the start, I think those are important to be able to build that sense of community going forward. So last but not least, my biggest advice for everyone here is to be first. And what I mean by that is whether you are faculty, your staff, current student, or an alumni, each one of your roles, our roles, is very crucial to the support and success of first-gen students. So be the first to welcome them, essentially. Help them navigate their careers, build a community, future leaders. I always tell everyone that the process and the mentality of a first-gen student or grad is we are forever writing a book that will never end. There was nothing, this isn't a chapter, this isn't a second version of a book, right? It's the first one. So as you're going through, everything that we do today is immensely impactful into how that story gets written and what that looks like into the end. I remember all of my mentors, my friends, my network to this day, and I remember it like if it was yesterday. So I think that same thing will apply to many students and every single person that helped them along the way, no matter how far they end up getting into their career. So while we are the first, and we are Penn State, right? We definitely won't be the last. And that's the important message to take here. I was privileged recently to be able to go back to the College of IST and speak to some students in an awesome classroom. And when I was doing that, I was just thinking to myself the entire time, this is ridiculous. Like I was once a student at Penn State, sitting in these very shoes, wondering what the heck am I going to do with my life? And here I am, 8 years later, coming back, already have worked for 3 amazing top companies in the world. But the biggest thing I can share to everyone else is that you're here for a reason. And even if you are first gen, right? Even if you don't necessarily know what is going to happen many years from now, the important thing to know is you are building a legacy for your ancestors. You're literally building yourself up and your family, making generational wealth happen, things that were impossible to think of as for your grandparents and many more to come from the past. So I think the biggest thing is we need to come together. We need to be first to get to the first gen students. And if you are a student here currently watching, take advantage, right? Listen to others. Don't worry, it's going to be scary. There's going to be uncertainty, but with all of us here together, we'll be able to thrive and become one. And I would love right now to transfer over to some questions, which I hope we have. And my contact information here is as well if you ever want to contact me through Twitter, my email, and I'm also available on LinkedIn.
Noel, thank you so much for that amazing presentation, for sharing your journey through Penn State, the opportunities and the challenges, both, because I think it's a lot for us to digest and think about. For the students that are joining us, you've imparted some great wisdom there, and for the faculty and staff and administrators as well that we could implement into our practice. So thank you. So we are going to go over to Q&A. I want to remind all of our participants today that your questions can be entered into the Whova platform. And if you could just go there and engage in the chat, there's already many entries on the chat so far. Most of it is about our little tech snafu at the beginning, but we quickly overcame that. And so if you could go in there and join us in some dialogue and then enter your questions for Noel, I'd be happy to deliver them to him. All right, so let's see. We've got one question so far. Noel, one of our attendees, is wondering what would be the best way to connect mentees and mentors, or mentors to mentees rather?
Yeah, I think it's if I understand it correctly, so there's multiple avenues to connect people. I think the first thing at a high level is to understand who is available and reconnect with the alumni. As an alumni, I know that I have a bunch of friends who graduated from Penn State and are not aware of programs like this. So I think first is, do we have interest from alumni? And if so, how many of those people do we have? And I also think there's something to being able to, as we get a good audience, specialize it and put a little bit more detail. If you're, let's say, majoring in IST, are there first gen alumni in IST, right? Or similar kind of a major, which can help a lot of that career navigation as well and tackle those pieces, but it doesn't have to be limited to just that. So we can find alumni, by the way, through LinkedIn very easily, because that is how Denise and I started meeting and discussing this. So I would start there and reaching out within our network.
That's great, thank you. Another question that came in, how can we get the parents of first-gen students more involved?
That's a great question. I think it's a team effort. And the reason I say this is because as a first-gen student, one of the things that happens is that we have always been accustomed to doing things by ourselves. And our parents have a lot of weight on our shoulders in terms of our say on what we do in college, what we major in. Believe it or not, it just is a big thing for us. So to get them involved, we need to have that sense of security and belonging and community and family amongst everyone. So there are opportunities to bring parents to a first gen summit or to an on-campus open house of sorts, right? Where we discuss finances and scholarships and this mentorship program and all of these things to make people feel welcome in the beginning and early on in their journey. That would be amazing, especially if you can. I think the mentorship is key, because if you can say that there will be a couple people along the way to be helping the student, like that is a long way into just building that connection relationship going forward.
That's great, thank you. Another question came in related to your comments about career services. So the question is, can you explain whether you weren't aware of the resources and potentially if they didn't feel accessible to you?
Yeah, in my particular case, I was aware that we had a career services center. What the problem that happened with me was, at that point in time, I was not feeling great to reach out. Like there was a lot going on in my life personally, with the loss of my mother. And the only thought I had in my mind was do anything and everything to be able to land a job, period. And it was hard for me. Like when I first entered Penn State, like as an underrepresented minority, like there wasn't a lot of people at the time that looked like me. And I had to kind of make my own carving way. So I had a little bit of, what I mentioned, some of the challenges. Like I felt like I could do this on my own, and I did. But the reason I kept saying is I wish I would have done more of that, expose myself to more of the career services center when it came to looking at resumes, when it came to trying to attack the job process and get interview tips for consulting and things like that. That wasn't something I took advantage enough as well. So I would emphasize that even more, right, earlier in the process, especially as a freshman or a sophomore, get people accustomed to how to use career services, how to connect with advisors and make that relationship happen.
Thank you, Noel. Well, I want to be conscious of our time since we do have another session starting in a few minutes, but we are so grateful for your time this morning. Thank you so much for being with us and sharing your journey with all of us. There are some phenomenal additional questions, a very enthusiastic crowd we have here with us this morning that are coming into the Whova site. So I know you and I discussed previously the possibility of you going in and answering some of those throughout the day when you have an opportunity, just right there in the site. So please, I encourage you, if you haven't asked your question yet, go ahead and add it to the Whova site when you have a moment. And Noel has agreed to go in and answer those. Noel's also shared his contact information, which I'll also put on the Whova site so that it's accessible for everyone. Thank you so much again. And for everyone joining us, enjoy the rest of the summit today. Please stay engaged with us and definitely take advantage of the community events. Thank you so much. Take care.
Thank you all.